I'm George Pearson, and these are just a few examples from some of the training videos I have here on YouTube. Now, when you're working with the training, following along the training, if you want to get the materials I used in the training, just go to the description down below and click on the link that's at the top of the description, and this will take you to a page where you can download the materials. Please subscribe, click the like button, and of course always share on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the video. In this fantasy how-to, we'll be turning this daytime picture over here on the left-hand side into a nighttime picture on the right-hand side with candle and candle light. Now there's a lot of steps involved to do this. Lots of layers you can see over here, lots of adjustment layers and stuff. But if you just break it down into simple steps, it's actually not that difficult of a process. Okay, I'm just going to hide this one. I'll just save it and hide that. There we go. Once that's saved, we'll then get rid of that file. Now we have three basic pictures involved here. One is the girl, one is the candle right inside there, and then one's that background bit in here. And I can bring those up. There's the background bit right there. And let me just switch over here and we'll find that candle shot. There's our photo bin. There's the candle. So the first thing I'll do is just to pull these two elements into this file so we have them available as soon as we want those. So I'll grab the background, and there's the background layer. Just drag that in like that. And we'll grab the candle, background layer, just drag that in as well. Then I'll close this candle out. So there's our two layers. I can then hide these. We don't need these at the moment. We'll come back to the candle, of course, later on in the training. I'm just going to put that way down there. And then here's our background image, which is hiding in behind the girl. There we go. I also want to put in here, right below this layer, this new background layer, I want to put a black layer in there. So make a new layer, just drag it right down underneath the background layer. And I'll fill it with black. So I'll first reset our colors to the default black and white, grab the paint bucket and click, and that will just fill this layer here with black. Now what that will allow me to do is to adjust the brightness of this layer by adjusting the transparency. I can show you how that's done. I'll just hide our top layer. And if I adjust the opacity on the wrong layer, there we go. I can make this lighter or darker just by adjusting opacity and showing black through it. It's a real easy way to be able to control the brightness of a layer. It's not that great for foreground layers because, as you see, you're also losing contrast at the same time. But it works out great for a background layer where the contrast isn't as important. Okay, so there's our basic layers in here, our basic elements. The next thing we need to do is to separate the girl from that background that we don't want. Notice we have our background around here, and there's a little bit peeking through right down there. So we'll be making a layer mask around the girl to do that. Now on layer mask, I'm going to be using the polygonal lasso tool over here. We'll do a very careful layer mask around here, a little loose around the hair, careful around here since the hair is pretty sharp there, and then we'll come in here and do a little thing right down there and just add that to the layer mask. So go on to our background. It says background copy. I'm just going to change this so that it says girl. There we go. There's our girl layer. And I'll zoom in. And we'll start way over here on the left side of the picture. Polygonal lasso tool. And I'll start right there. I'm just going to come along and grab this edge. It doesn't need to be that critical on this one because it's going to be pretty dark over here anyway. But I want to make sure that I don't go into that light part of the background. So I want to lose that light part and exchange that for a darker picture. Now it is critical along the finger here, so go ahead and take your time along this part of this. Now, as with all of my projects, the most critical step is the layer mask step. You can always come back and adjust the layer mask, which is why I like using layer masks when possible. But take your time on the layer mask and everything else will be a lot better. And the layer mask comes from this selection. And you're at an edge like this, hold the space bar down, you get that hand tool, you can then just kind of move that along. Okay, so I'm a little bit out from the hair, right down below where the cursor is right now. We'll use the Refine Edge tool for that. For this part of the hair, I'm going to come in pretty tight. We don't really need to see any little stray hairs up in here. It's not going to be critical for the picture, and it's going to be dark up in here anyway, so we just come in and do a nice clean edge along this, and then spacebar again, pull that over. Now areas like this where you have green like that, it's kind of a soft edge in the hair, you'll find this is one of those instances where the Refine Edge tool really has a hard time. So luckily for us, this is going to be in the shadow area anyway, and it's not going to be critical. But if you're trying to do a refined edge around here and you have kind of a soft edge on the hair and a soft green area behind it, you may have some difficulty with that tool. It's a great tool when it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't work. Okay, hold the space bar down. Let's move that over, and then we can finish off down along the back here. And I'll take it just outside. Hold the space bar down, and we'll pull it way down like that, and clear down at the bottom. And I'll click just outside. You can actually click outside with this tool. And also auto scroll to that side and then click outside. See, there's the line still. And I'll auto scroll to the top. There we go. I want to come in just a little click outside and then come back to the beginning. Okay, that gives me that selection around in there. Now I want to add, or actually subtract this bit from that selection. So let's go to our tools and choose subtract from selection, and then I'll do a careful selection right along the edge of the hand here, right to the edge of the rock, and I'll just take that out. There we go. And then along the bottom down here. Now for part of the hair, I'm going to come back and use the Refine Edge, so I think we can get it to work okay in this little section, but we can always adjust things by hand on the layer mask if we need to. I'll got a little zigzag stuff around the edge of the hair in here. And come back around to the beginning. Okay, so there is our selection and our removed selections. And let's now go to the Refine Edge tool. So let's select and Refine Edge. Get a second to launch. There it is. Now on this one, I normally use this with the overlay. I just happen to like it. You can use whatever you like to use. You can try different ones if you want to. I think overlay works out very, very well. I'll leave all these settings as is. We'll be outputting this to a new layer with layer mask right there. And then you can adjust this brush size right down here in the options panel. I'll leave mine at the 35, that's fine. And this just paint right along the edge of the hair. And this will allow Photoshop Elements to kind of refigure or readjust that, and that's pretty good. And then let's just try a little bit of this edge of our hair in here. It'll just make a bit of a soft edge for us on that. And that should be okay. Anything else we can just fix manually. Choose OK. And there we are. There's the new layer with layer mask. As you can see right here, here's the original layer. And it looks pretty good. A little bit of that color background showing through doesn't matter because we'll be showing this other background behind that. Alright, let's back out a little bit here. There we go. And we'll show our background. There's the background. Notice that just kind of blends in very nicely in there. That's fine. Now if you want to, you can move the background picture around a bit. I like to have it over here just a touch. There's just kind of a path right there. Some rocks and a path. It might even be like an animal trail or something in there. So I want a little bit of the tree showing at the top, and I want some of that path showing in there. It just adds a bit of mystery in behind on that one. Okay, so there's the basic picture. Now we have our foreground and our background elements. Let's now just push this background layer back a bit and get it back where we want this to be. So I'm first going to adjust the transparency here to darken this down. And what I used was 78%. That seemed to be about right for me. There we go. It just kind of darkens it down. We'll be blending that down even further a little later on, but that's about right. It's like kind of blends in now right in here. It seems to look pretty good. So there's that. I also want to adjust the brightness on this and the coloration. I want it cooler in the background since we're going to be doing a nighttime shot. So I'll do 2 adjustment layers on this one. I'll start off with a brightness contrast. So it's layer, new adjustment layer, brightness contrast, and do the check mark right there where it says use previous layer to create clipping mask. Do that, and that will then link that layer onto just that background layer. Now on this, I'm going to bring the brightness down, and what I used in my example was -21, just kind of darken it down a little bit. And then to compensate for the loss in contrast, which we talked about earlier when we show the black through that, I'm going to bring that contrast up here and bring our contrast back in again. So that solves that contrast problem. And notice how it's a really good match now. It looks like she's actually in that location. We'll just close that out. So there we go. There's that background. I want to cool this down as well. So I'll use another adjustment layer. So layer, new adjustment layer. And this time we're going to be changing the color. So we'll use a photo filter for that. And again, click that to create a clipping mask on that one. There we go. Here's our photo filter. And the one I used is a cooling filter right there, cooling 80. And that just puts it into cools. Notice how it's even a better match now with our foreground. Our foreground picture was cooler than our background picture. And using this cooling filter, just kind of blended those in together. Now it's not quite cool enough, so I'm going to bring my density up here until it's about 60% or so, 58, 59, 60, there we go. And that just cools it off. So the background is cooler than the foreground, which I also want because the lamp's going to be real warm. So we want a cooler background to contrast with the warm and the warmth from the lamp in the foreground. Okay, that takes care of the background part of the picture. We'll be doing some more stuff later on to darken the front down and then darken the whole picture down to make it look real nice. But that takes care of the basic background section. Okay, that's done. Let's now do a little bit of work on the girl. That's up here at this layer. Now we're going to be having a warm yellow light in the lantern, and that's going to be putting warmth onto the girl's face. So I need to have a layer in here to add some warmth onto the face. So I'll do a new layer right above our girl layer here. And let's just grab a new color. Here's the color picker. Come into the yellows. Do kind of a yellow orange. Make sure your full saturation, which is at the top up here. Something kind of like that. It doesn't need to be too yellow. I think just kind of a nice warm yellow orange. We'll be putting in an adjustment layer above this so we can tweak this color as well later on. Choose OK. And let's grab a paintbrush. And see, it's pretty good size here. I'm going to bring the size down a little bit on this. Maybe bring it down to about 100 pixels on this image. That's pretty good. And it's a soft brush, as you can see. And then we're going to paint right over the hand and in here and over the face like that, and around the hair and along the edge of this arm. A little bit in there, a couple little spots like that. This is where the light from this is hitting. If you want to get fancy, you could do it a little bit right down there, but I'm not going to get that tricky on this one. So the light hits on her face in here. Obviously, though, this just looks awful, so I need to blend this into the picture just underneath of it. So we'll do that by using a blending mode. You'll go over here to normal and come down to overlay, and that just blends that in like that. Now it's too bright. We'll be taking care of that. We'll be adjusting that, but you want to have some brightness. It's just a bit too much, as you can see. So we're going to just tweak this a little bit, and we'll do that with an adjustment layer above this layer. I'm going to call this one Lamp Glow 1. We'll be doing a second Lamp Glow 2, which will be just the face. Then with those two, we can tweak them around to get just the effect that we want. Now, once we're a bit further on, you can adjust the amount of this effect by bringing down the opacity. See right there, you can adjust how much glow is hitting the face. I'll leave it clear up at 100 right now, but we can adjust that and tweak that later on. Let's now play with our colors just a little bit. So I want to be able to adjust that color. So I'll do Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and Hue Saturation. Again, let's just link this with the previous layer so it's just on that orange layer. And now that I have this layer, I can come in here and I can adjust things like my saturation or my lightness. I can make it a little bit lighter or darker in here, make it more or less saturated. I can adjust the values, but I'm going to go a little bit warmer on that, like that, but more towards the orange. So having this layer here allows you to tweak the quality of that. And to make this kind of a picture work, you want to be able to tweak as much as you can when you get down towards the end of the whole process. We'll be going back and forth and doing little tweaks here and little tweaks there. Okay, so far so good. Now I want to have a little more control over just the face. So I'll do the exact same thing here, do a new layer above this layer. Go back to my orange color. So we're still in the same color right there. And I'm going to do just the face, just right there. This time I'm going to be changing this to a soft light blending mode. There we go. And that gives me, again, a little more brightness right in the face, and I can then adjust or modify that. So this is going to be the face glow. There we go. Now, just like before, you can put in a blending mode if you want to, a hue saturation. There's our soft light blending, and then hue saturation above this to allow you to tweak the coloration. So really just put that one in just so we have it there. I may or may not use this layer. We'll see how it goes, but I like having it in place just in case. So there's my adjustment layer. Okay, so we now have our warm glows in here, the overall area, and a bit more on the face, and we can then adjust our color if we want to make all that match. Okay, so far so good. Let's now continue to work a bit further on this one. The next thing we want to do is to come in and put the brightness into the lamp itself. So I'll zoom in on the lamp. Here's our panes of glass in there, and that's on this picture layer right there, the layer of the girl. So we're going to select out the lamp section right there, and then do a layer mask on that to hide the frame and this candle thing in here. So we'll do a little bit of that layer mask stuff. Now keep in mind, actually, on the candle holder, that this piece here has, that's a bit of glass right there, so that's going to be bright, and that's going to be in front of that. The glass in behind is in behind. It's a little bit tricky just to think this thing through, but again, pretty straightforward. So let's grab our polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to make a selection just right along the top edge here, and make a selection around the lamp, and just around the panes of glass in here, the frames for the panes of glass. Now this isn't really critical. We'll be adjusting this in a bit. Okay, so there's our selection. Now I want to have this on a new layer. We'll be putting that above everything else. So let's go up here to Layer, New, via Copy. Just like that. Here's our layers. This is going to be our panes layer. I'll do lamp panes. That'll make it nice and easy to See, here's our lamp panes right there. Take this layer and drag it to the top. There we go, and it kind of indented automatically. I'll just right click here, let's release that clipping mask. There we go. That's our lamp panes. Now I want to adjust the coloration of this so it has a nice warm yellow coloration on that. So go ahead and do this. Now on this one you can do it as an adjustment layer if you want to, or not, it's up to you. Having an adjustment layer in here is always nice to do though. It allows you to come back and make adjustments later on. So it's still layer, Hue Saturation, make sure that you clip that to the previous layer. You can see the indentation right there. And let's just play one with our brightness and our saturation in here. It's a bit too much. And I'm looking at just the glass itself. Don't worry about the frame color. We're going to be hiding the frame. And all I want to do is just to warm up the colors in there. I'm looking for kind of yellow over in this area. I want to find the best yellow in that spot. This is just step one of a two-step process. And that looks pretty good. Don't go too crazy on it. And I think we're pretty good there. If you go too light, it gets washed out like that, so you don't want to go too light. Just adding in just some warmth into that. And there we go. So there is our first step on our warmth. Now I want to get rid of this piece of frame, that piece of frame, and that piece of frame, but keep everything else. This I'll leave as is. We just want to hide these frames. So I'll do that over here on the layer mask. Notice the light blue outline. If you don't see that, just double click on that to bring that over to the light blue outline. And then if we paint in black on that side, that will then hide whatever it is we're painting black. So to do this, I'm going to make a selection inside of this frame, and then I'll add a selection inside of this frame, and then add a selection inside of that frame, leaving a little bit of that frame showing, that frame edge showing. I'll then invert that and then paint in black, so you'll see how that goes. So we'll start right here in the corner, and let's just do some. What I'm doing is I'm selecting the panes of glass themselves. There we are, and let's set this to add in the options. And same thing in here, we'll add this pane of glass in just like that. And then I'll add the back pane of glass in, and I want to keep that edge. See that their edge there is kind of yellow? I want to keep that yellow part of that edge. So it's part way through. There we go. So there's the panes selected. Let's now invert that. So select inverse. Go to your paintbrush. Set on black. That's fine. I'm just going to paint black just kind of like that. Just do a big black spot. You can see it right there. So what this is doing is it's protecting those panes of glass, allowing me to paint around everything else, so that I then only have, once we deselect that, just the panes of glass now are that warmer tint that we just did. Okay, so that's getting closer. We're beginning to build in the lamp properly in here. So now we want to brighten this up. So we'll do a new adjustment layer in here. And for that we're going to be using a photo filter again, and that's layer, new adjustment layer, and photo filter right there. And let's set this with the clipping mask again. Choose OK. There's our photo filter on that one. Now on this instance I want to lighten this up, so we're going to be using a warming filter. Now the default is warming 85, which is perfect. That's what I want. And then we can adjust the luminosity here. Notice how the luminosity allows us to go a lot more yellow in there. You can see right there. A lot more yellow. Now, it's making it yellow on the frame. We'll take care of that in just a bit. That's fine. Notice I also have preserved luminosity in here. Somewhere around here, around 80% or so. Looks pretty good. Now to fix this frame edge problem, just come down one layer. There's our layer mask. Hold the Alt key down and then drag that up and choose OK. That copies that layer mask up. So there we go. That's looking nice. Now it's still not bright enough. We have our colors looking pretty good, but it's not bright enough yet. So we still want to bring in a bit more brightness as well. So let's do one more adjustment layer above our photo layer. So layer, adjustment layer, and we'll do levels in here. And again, make sure that that is linked to that previous layer. There we go. Now in here I can brighten that up using my slider control. So I have a lot of control now to get just the effect that I want. So I can come in here and just get it nice and bright, nice bright effect. And that's with your levels adjustment. And the same thing with the layer mask. Alt key down and drag that up. That copies the layer mask so that our brightness now is just inside of the panes of glass. Okay, let's just zoom out and see how that's looking. That's looking pretty good. Okay, now we need to put our candle inside of this. So let's come down to our candle layer. Just wait on here. I'll show the candle layer again. There we go. Let's just drag that up and get it basically in place on our layer stack here. It's going to be way too large here. Once it's at the very top at this point. And notice how it's kind of moved in here. It's matched this same clipping. So right click and let's release that clipping so it comes back out onto the front. There we go. Now this also needs to be brought down in size a bit, and we need to do a layer mask around this to show just the part of the candle that we want. So I'll start off with bringing down our size, and that's just grabbing the corner, and we can just drag that down a bit. Don't take it down too far yet. Put it about like this. This makes it easy to make the clipping mask on that. Doesn't need to be real critical on this one, luckily. So grab the polygonal lasso tool, and we'll adjust the bottom of the mask later just to make it fit properly. But we'll start off here, come around, do a nice little selection around the candle and in around the wick, and then kind of around the flame. There's a little bit of a glow right there. You can come around the glow if you want to. There we go. Just kind of follow that around, and we'll use this selection to create our clipping mask. And it'll modify the clipping mask to fix the bottom once we have our candle in place. Okay, straight across the bottom like that. There's our selection. Hit the clipping mask button. There's our clipping mask. Okay, let's continue shrinking our candle. Now grab an outside corner here. There's our top corner. That'll work. And let's continue to pull that down until it's about the right size. Looks like right around here is pretty close. I'm going to zoom in now. Okay, so there's the candle holder, and you want the candle a little bit smaller than the candle holder size, so that's looking pretty good. I want it to have just kind of like that, so we're seeing most of that candle in there. Now notice there's a curve right around there. We want to have the candle cut off at that point. So I'm going to bring my opacity down about halfway. I can now see that curve pretty easily. So make sure that you're on the layer mask side. Let me just go ahead and name this candle. As you can see that, there we go. Layer mask side, grab the polygonal lasso tool, and then just make a little selection right along the top of this edge here, like that, and then around the bottom and back to our starting point, and then just paint black inside of that. There we go. And then deselect. So that hides the candle at the bottom part. Can I make our candle full brightness again? Now I want to bring back in these frames, and we'll do that with this layer mask right here, the same layer mask concept, and that is to hide the part of the picture that should be in behind the frame, just like we did down here with these layer masks. But this time we'll be doing it on this candle layer mask. Same idea though, so I'll just come in here and come along these edges. Now this time I can just come down here somewhere and just kind of cut across, and all I need to worry about is the part of the frame that should be in front of the candle, and come back to our starting point. So there's my selection, so I can see this bit and this bit in here. Same thing again, make sure you're on the layer mask and just paint black into that. There we go. And deselect, so that hides that part of the candle. Now if it's too dark in there along that edge of the candle, if that's not looking quite right, you can just come back in with a little bit of black and a soft brush. I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush. And just kind of soften down that edge. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so there's the candle. Now we need to adjust the values of the candle a little bit so that it looks like it's actually inside of this light area. So it needs to be lightened up just a little bit. And we'll do that with an adjustment layer again right on top of this one. So layer, adjustment layer, and levels. And make sure that you do the previous layer clipping mask right there. Okay, now I can adjust the middle slider control, kind of lighten that up a bit, and bring in the lightness on the right side a bit, and bring in kind of a glow back into there so it feels like it's inside of this lit space. So here it is without. Looks really just too dark. And here it is with. We just lighten that up so it feels like it's getting some reflected light back onto the candle. It kind of just fits the environment better. So there's our adjustment on that. Okay, so the candle is done. Let's now zoom out a little bit. There's a nice bright candle. We have a bright candle. We have our bright face. That's all looking pretty good. Obviously, though, the whole thing is too bright still, so we need to work on that. Let's just bring our picture up here. Okay, so let's add a new layer here. Adjustment layer and photo filter. Now I don't want this one clipping with anything down underneath, so choose OK. This one is for the overall picture. Now this time I want to have this cooling, a cooling filter. So we'll go down here, choose our cooling filter 80. That gives me kind of a nice blue tint in here. And let's set the density to just about 45 or so, kind of a nice cool blue. There we go. And we'll just hide that. So there's our coolness. But notice that we've also cooled down the brightness effect in here on this. So we need to use our layer mask and hide the cooling effect around the lamp and around the face. So go back here to the paintbrush, and I'll bring the size back up to 100, which we were using before. It's pretty good. There we go. And let's paint right around where that is, and then around the areas where we had the warmth that we did. So right on the face and the hair, and around that. That just gives us a little layer mask right there. And it brings back in the warmth around that area. Now I want to darken the picture down around the bottom, around the back side in here. And let's do that with a new layer. There we go. And this is going to be my shadow layer. And pull this layer underneath the photo filter layer, just like that. And then using black, if you don't have black, just click on the reset colors there. So you have black. And there we go. Paintbrush. Actually, I'm going to zoom out just a bit. Here we go. Let's just go ahead and new layer. So here's our new layer. Now we'll be painting on black onto this layer, but I don't want it to go down too hard or too fast. So let's adjust the opacity in here down to about 60% or so. Somewhere around 60% should do a pretty good job. And I can now just kind of edge in on this and carefully bring in my darker edge. There we go. So it allows us to kind of refocus our vision on what's happening in here and not really see the outside edge. Now if it's too much, you can bring down your opacity a little bit over here to control those darkening values. Just creating a little vignette. Okay, looking pretty good. Let's zoom in a bit more. There we go. Looks better, larger, as you can see. Now, the back side of our girl here is a bit too bright still in there. I want to darken it down right just in here a little bit. Not too much, but just right along the back edge to kind of fade that out a touch. Now to do that, let's make a new layer right above this layer. There we go. And then let's come just kind of just along the edge like that, just kind of touching a little bit, but I don't want to have this on the background. So let's take the layer mask, Alt key down, and pull that up so you copy the layer mask in. It just darkens down just that area around the back side of her. So that is kind of a shadow. I'm going to call this one girl shadow. There we go. So you can then adjust that as you need to. Okay, it's looking really good. We're still too bright in the background up here though. So let's come down to our background layer. That's this one. Just call this one Forest. There we are. And I'm going to bring the opacity down on this a little bit. And that allows me to darken down that background. You want to have some light back there, but you want to look at this light first and then see that light second. So let's call it a second read. If you go too dark, then her face will look too bright. So bringing it down to about 62%. I think that looks pretty good. Okay, there we go. There is the nighttime effect. Nice bright light from our candle in here with our new background and some additional controls happening. Let's now see how this looks on the original. We can do that by just taking the original layer right here. I'll drag that clear up to the top. There we go. Just kind of pull it up to the top of the stack. There it is. And then let's unhide that. So there's the original daytime look. And then there is our fantasy version nighttime look. And the nice thing about this process here, if you notice I did everything with adjustment layers and layer masks. And the reason for that is you can then come back and tweak this any way you want. If you think that maybe her coloration's off a little bit up in here, we'll come down and that's the lamp glow layer right here. Here's the hue saturation for that. Double click on the hue saturation, brings that control back up again, and then I can come in and tweak that coloration. I think a little less yellow actually looks better. So there we go. So it allows you, by doing these adjustment layers that are linked to those individual layers, it allows you to come back and do little fine-tuning adjustments until you get it exactly the way you want. But there we go. That is taking a daytime picture of a girl here and converting that into a nighttime fantasy picture. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this